I don't need those.
Hello and welcome to UK Versus. This is an interview we've been trying to get going for months now, and luckily we've been able to get it worked out. As Richard and I are joined by UVS Creative Master Hitch, long-time Trekkie and just all-round great guy. How are you doing, my friend?
I'm good. I'm glad to be here finally. We talk a lot on socials, and it's nice to finally be able to talk to you guys in person.
Yeah, it's great to have you on and sort of get to talk about, I guess, sort of majorly the art design and the sort of choices and then things going on in the upcoming Critical Role set, and I guess just partly, see a bit how the soup is made.
As much as I can.
Yes, of course.
Although
I am taking for certain the fact that you've got a Dune book on your shelves means that a Dune set is confirmed.
It's all research. Can you imagine trying to adapt one of these? I don't know how we would do that.
So you've got a list of approved stuff we can talk about. We're going to take some questions from people and questions that come up naturally, and we're going to just talk about the way cards get designed. I get any questions we have hopefully answered about them, and push the limits of what you are allowed to talk about without, of course, going over. We don't want to get you in any trouble.
Yeah. I mean, I can also draw from I've spent a lot of my career working in publishing and licensing in streaming and entertainment and video games and stuff. So while I might not be able to get into certain specifics on stuff we do at UVS, I can relate some answers to things that I've worked on in other places to maybe give context to things if certain questions come up.
So let's start off by taking a look at one of the more interesting things that you sent me for me was the comic book adaptation with the sort of pixelated patterns and how it goes down. Because when I got my Altat Ghidorah, I did get a microscope out and I did see these kind of patterns myself. And how did it come about that you were going to kind of use these to add that kind of texture and feel to the cards you're adapting from comics?
So which card are you talking about? Because I can't see what you're seeing.
I've just got the UVS sort of like comic thing you sent over.
The sort of the palette, I guess.
Yeah.
Of all the different sort of dot works and how they all interact and things.
The macro closer. No, it's not macro closer. That's the other one.
So
it's the one under working with comic books.
So yeah, I mean, working with comic books just in general while the ads load. So we were working with Toho International and figuring out how can you bring Godzilla into a card game and have it be visually interesting, because what I think what a lot of people don't like is when people cheap out and then they're like, oh, we'll get some screen caps of movies and we'll put it on cards, and it doesn't really gel with everything else that's happening. I see what we're pulling up now. What I try to do is look at the art that we have and then look at the frame elements and the icons and all the text and stuff and make it feel like it's a cohesive piece. So, there are things like if you were to get a screenshot from you'll see this with Street Fighter cards when they come out, is a lot of things we had to take from in-game. And even that, while it is stylized and it's a 3D stylized thing, it still doesn't have that I don't want to say flatness that people are used to with things like anime and Star Trek and even comic books. And so it's finding a way to treat and stylize those things so that they sit well with the card elements, but also when you put them in your deck with all of the other IPs that we do, is trying to make them look like they all kind of fit together, even though they are from different places. So when we worked with Toho, they had all of the comic book stuff that they'd worked on with IDW and places, and they said, well, you want to use like these 4 characters. Here are comic books that have those characters in. If you find maybe other comic books that you want to use, we can grab the art from the pages from those, and you can put them on, and that's all fine. Unfortunately, I was familiar with Godzilla, but I'm not a Godzilla super fan. And anyone that knows Jeremy Ray, the lead game designer, is a huge Godzilla fan, and thank God for him, because he was able, like, he'd already seen most of these comics. He was able to go in and be like, this is this move, even if it doesn't say it on the page, and he recognized what all these things were. So that was a cool like little dance that I get to do is I work closely with game design, and he was able to contribute, I think, a lot more to the art in that set, which is fun for those guys, because they work on rules and text and play testing and stuff all day, and I think it's fun for people to like go outside of their zone, right, what they work in. When we look at the thing that we have up now, what this is showing is basically how cards are printed. And so this is something we had to pay attention to when we worked with manga. And I won't get too deep into things that occurred, but basically, when you print cards and they go through the machines, they hit color plates. And so you have your CMYK, your cyan, magenta, yellow, and K is your black. And each of those plates is offset by a certain number of degrees. So you wouldn't put everything through at a 0 degree, because otherwise you would print blue dots and pink dots and yellow dots, and they would just layer on top of each other. So those plates offset at like 15 degrees or 45 degrees or whatever. Like each print shop has their own their own makeup of plates and the order of plates even. And so when you print one and then the other and the other, they create what's called a rosette pattern, which is what you can see in the middle center. There is the rosette pattern, and underneath that you'll see when you have different like if you have a 100C, that's a full wash of cyan. But if you have like a 50C, that's a half wash. So that's like a different transparency of it. And so by printing different opacities of different colors, that gives you the different mixtures of colors. So the C's and the cyans and the magentas will give you like the purples and the greens and all of those things that you can see underneath that. And that is how color stuff is made. And so what's easy for us is everything being in color, and all of the anime screenshots and all of the comic book stuff we get, it all comes in as color, and it's all printed with that in mind. And so everything just aligns perfectly. But then when we went to work with Attack on Titan, that was not color. And so that was made to be printed in just black ink, right? So they didn't, it wasn't taken into consideration that color would ever be applied to them. So when they do, they're also hand-drawn, which is another thing that is that you don't normally see from things like anime. It's like it's all done on computers and rendered. So with the things being hand-drawn, when they do the halftone sheets, they put them on by hand, and so they'll put it down and they'll scratch it off, and they'll put it on and again and they'll scratch it off, and so the halftones come in at different angles. And what that means is it doesn't line up to perfectly how a K plate would print, which means when we went to do AOT, sometimes we would have this kind of fuzz pattern, this interference pattern happening. And that's why when we did initial test prints, everything was coming out and looking not blurred, but like it had an interference pattern when you stared at it. And that's why in AOT we had to go in and remove, like when I kept saying like I hate dots and I hate halftones, it's I had to manually go in, and me and my team had to go in and manually remove halftones from the majority of the cards from all 3 sets of Attack on Titan.
Oh wow!
So it is a thing we learned in doing that manga that like now we know what to look for and we know how to do that. But that was a thing that we had no idea how to work with when we first started working with just plain black and white manga as opposed to comics, which was like, oh, it is easy. It just works the same way as anime screenshots do.
That makes a lot of sense. And I guess one of the great things about working with the black and white manga as opposed to the screenshots of the comics is you were able to fill in the color yourselves, and you were able to kind of do that symboled coloring. But
yes,
the big question is, how much influence did the IP holder have over the coloration and like how the cards got their final look in a AOT? Because like I said, they were never designed to be colored, and you were essentially not fixing, but adapting that to color, and that might be something that the IP holders might be a bit dubious about.
Yeah, so Kodansha, who was the licensor, the publisher of the books, was very. This was the first time they've worked directly with a company on something like this at a scale of this size, right? And so they were very open to working with us. And as far as the coloring goes, there were two main sources for the coloring, and one of them was obviously the anime. People are familiar with these characters; they have been for over 10 years. You don't want to take Eren and make him a redhead, right? You can't just go ham with these things. But the other one was there is Attack on Titan in color, and that's like 2 books where they've taken specific chapters from those books, like key chapters, and they've had those colorized. And so those ones they got hold of, they again did the same thing we did. They removed all the halftones. They went in and did all the coloring. So the primary reference really we had for those was first we would go to the books, because those were the printed ones that they'd already gone through licensing and review, and they'd gone to Isayama, who'd approved the colors, and so that was for them. That was like this is the palette we have. Then obviously we're working with the entire 36 volumes or whatever it is, and these are only a few chapters. So you had characters that weren't colorized. You had moments in the story and Titans that weren't covered, and so for those, then we would go back and reference what was in the anime, and we would pull specific screenshots from that. And then I had to basically come up with these like multi-page documents of colors. So it was like, this is the skin tone, the hair color, the everyone's uniform is like, this is the jacket color, the scarf color, this kind of thing. Speaking of the scarf color, that's the one difference between Attack on Titan in color and the anime is, I think in the anime, Mikasa has the red scarf, but if you read Attack on Titan in color, she has a black scarf. And so in ours, you'll see that ours is a black scarf, because that was what was originally intended by Isayama in the Attack on Titan in color.
That makes a lot of sense.
That just sounds like a lot of work, right? Because you've got to make sure it works thematically, game-wise. If you're trying to do the whole colorization by the color pie in the game, and then make sure it matches up with what the colorized manga has been, and also matches up with what maybe has happened in the anime. And getting all of those things to sort of marry up, probably was quite the task.
That's what I was going to ask. Is like, was there much discussion about the colors of the symbols for the cards? Because like, pink for chaos makes a lot of sense, and you've got blue for air. But taking things like death and order and trying to put them into a color that would also be very stylized for the cards and make them have that pop and look that you guys are really good at getting, must have been a big discussion. There must have been a lot of trial and error in getting that color as well. Yeah,
so obviously a lot of the backgrounds in the manga are either plain, or they're either very plain, or they're very busy with buildings and trees and forests and whatnot. And I didn't want to color all those. I wanted to bring that that sense of like color identity into it. And so we just decided the focal point of the panel or the image is going to be what is in color, and then everything else can be shades of whatever the symbol color was. And as far as picking those went, like obviously yes, you've got the simple ones like blue and pink and green, and then when you get to order and death, it was like looking, because when we redid the frames back in 23 for Jetburn, we obviously redid the symbols, and there was everything going on around those, but those were simplified to just be single color icons, and so obviously being able to pull flat colors from those, but then order and death were quite, I think order is like a grayish beige, and then death is black, so that doesn't work. I originally had tints of gray as the background color, but it just, when you print out you'll see everything has three shades. You've got a dark blue, a medium blue, and a light blue, and we just stick to those three colors. So you have three shades of gray, and then your black line art, and then it just doesn't read well on the card. And so there wasn't a red symbol because there was only 6 symbols in AOT. We weren't using evil, which is red. So it was like, well, we can use that because I'm not sure if we knew at the time if we were going to stick to the same 6 symbols for all the sets, or if we were just going to, if we were going to change it up per set. I think that was still something being discussed, because again, a lot of my work was done before, as licenses were being signed and as game design was still in discovery phase. Everything was open at that point, and so it was like, well, if I don't want to work with 12 colors, like if I have to switch 6 symbols to another 6 symbols, how can I maybe pair these up? And so like if I have to change death and evil comes in, those two can both pair with red, and red is a good death color because blood, obviously. And so that was really how that came about, is finding distinct colors, because you've got pinks and reds and oranges, and you can't just color pick the exact orange that you use, because when you print that, it looks too close to a red. And so just tweaking a lot of the colors until we came up with the ones that we settled on. And then Infinity was purple, because the only other purple symbol was void, but it was the one that was furthest away from everything that was used from the established core 6 in the first set.
That makes a lot of sense.
Because I did try rainbow gradients, and they did not look good. I wish I could show you how bad they looked.
Oh, but I want to see a rainbow female Titan attack. That'd be so cool.
It was not. Is it Beard? Beard Titan was the Infinity character.
Yeah, Beard Titan.
Him with a rainbow gradient was a real bad look.
I'm gonna have to open up Photoshop and see if I can make a Pride Titan.
I challenge you to do that.
So this is a great point, but let's move on to, this is a nice little segue to talking about the symbols, hand size, stuff like you've sent through, and I'll lead in with the question of how well does knowing the IP help design the cards? For example, like when you were showing off the symbols and checks and difficulties on Twitter, I found that really cool. I hadn't even noticed the Starfleet symbol in the Star Trek one, and I went back and checked it. Does immersing yourself in an IP and learning more about it help really translate the IP more in the card?
Absolutely. Even on things like I said, like with Godzilla, I was familiar with the movies. I didn't know much about the lore other than I think what most people know about, radioactive bombs and stuff. But there's like a whole rich lore of, Godzilla stuff. It is important to immerse yourself in it so that you stay authentic to the IP, because that's really what you want to do. Like we're all massive nerds, and it's games like this that let us come in and find new things that we that we can enjoy. And that's kind of like a nice two-way thing that we try and do, is like we try and bring in IPs that we know people will like, but also like try and bring new people into the game and help them discover other things through, like, you know, oh, this is a staple card from this set and I'm not a fan of that IP, but I'll use it. And then you get familiar with it, and with familiarity, you know, you then start wanting to learn more about things. Yeah. When it comes to like Star Trek was my pitch internally. Like I remember 4 to 5 months after I started, I was like, you know what might be a really crazy idea is like, what if we brought Star Trek in? And I didn't have to research that at all, because I'm just a mega fan of it. So when it was time to like come and suggest things for icons, it was like, well, cards kind of look like pads. We can make those look like that. And then we've got these cool, you know, we get access to the asset libraries of licenses, and you look through and you see like cool patterns and designs they have. And so you're like, oh, look, there's all these pattern ship designs. We can put those in this thing. And some things you try and they're just too busy and they don't work. And then other times you put them in and it's great. Like the little delta in the speed icon. It was like, could that be a badgie instead of just a regular delta? And it's like, maybe that's too busy for that. And then you go to something like solar leveling, and you want it to, like, the icons don't ever look like the form of them does not change, but the style of them changes, because, you know, we as established players understand what these mean, but you want newer players coming in to understand that, like, yes, you can play solo leveling with Dark Hero. Like, this is they all share the same, you know, set of icons and stuff. And so you look at solo leveling and it's like, what's happening with that IP? And I, you know, went and, fortunately it was all out, so I just spent, you know, a day binging that entire show, and was like, oh, okay, it's I've seen similar isekai style shows. It has the glitchy computer, like, that's really the only thing that sets it apart, is that kind of glitchy interface thing. And what usually happens is I'm more on the art side, and the way our team is broken down is like, it's art, and then there is kind of like layout, and I'll hand my stuff off to Aaron, who's our design director, and he does a great job of taking that, and then he takes my art, puts it in the cards, and he'll take my suggestions. For if I have suggestions, sometimes he'll just do it on his own because he's great at that kind of thing, and he'll really get into the details of, like, this kind of, like, you'll see the card frames themselves look different. Like Attack on Titan has the grungy, gritty borders. MHA has the clean borders. He'll go to town on, like, fixing up the icons and taking, like, some wild idea I had and making it into something that works on the card. And then that'll go off to, you know, the production team that works with the printers and everything.
I think one thing I need to point out with the soul leveling one is that the cards kind of look like the system updates.
Yeah, you'll see, like, if there's any kind of prominent UI in a show, we will try to lean in on that, because it's already established as a thing in that world. So when you you know, you'll see Street Fighter, when Street Fighter comes out, there's we really lean into that kind of urban spray paint, like that kind of street kind of style. And then you have Critical Role, which is all about kind of stone, and the symbols in Heroes of Exandria is the same as it was in the Challenger series. You've seen these already, but they're all very, which are on screen here. So they're all like very stony and marbly and kind of sleek looking.
They look very gemmy, because we've got the Attack on Titan wall kind of icons in the bottom right. Then soul leveling in the middle with, like, the shadow infiltration and the speed, which is very cool.
Yes.
Then we got the Street Fighter ones with the spray paint on the bottom left. Star
Yes.
Trek top left and the jewel encrusted kind of critical role on the top right.
Yes.
This is my first time seeing the Street Fighter ones, and they look really cool. I like the.
I was racking my head when I was looking at trying to work out where that was from, and obviously it's Street Fighter.
There's some Easter eggs for you.
Yeah.
I like the.
As much as I can show you without showing you anything else to do with Street Fighter.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think the move to have this it's all universes, but it's all part of that kind of world universe building as part of the product, I think is really cool. Like as long as sort of the baseline, they all do what they're supposed to do, then yeah, I think that's sort of an area to sort of build that world, that universe within the cards.
Yeah, and then it years ago I wrote that article that was like explaining the frame, like thinking behind the frame methodology and stuff, and basically that just acts as a framework. So if you want to bring in a new card type like a backup or something, you can be like, oh, okay, well, we don't need to change anything in the form of the card. Like, how do we make this card look different? And you're like, well, does it play the same way as other cards? How does it act on your stage? Like, we can just like this is a card where the only thing we need to change is like the coloring to make it a magenta color to signify that is different. Whereas you have like I think Magic the Gathering has like some cards that go horizontal, for example, and so they adapt things in that way. And so you look at the methodology of like how your card works. And so if for some reason we ever need to put a new icon on a card, we can follow the same methodology. Like backups we don't want to have health because health is an established mechanic in the game. So we need something else. And that other thing was vitality, is it? Stamina. Yeah, I think it started off as vitality and then it changed to stamina. So it's like it works the same way as health. So we want to signify that people understand that. But that's why we kept the heart, but then it was a green heart because you understand it works the same way as and a lot of these things are for new players. So it's like, a heart means health, but the fact that it's green means it's not your health, it's the health of something else, which in this instance was the backup itself.
That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, so it keeps that kind of easy sort of shortcut in your brain that it does the same thing, but there's enough there to differentiate it, so that there is that differentiation.
Speaking of cards that were designed with being committed or being turned sideways in mind, we have the lenticular. There we go.
Lenticular.
Lower deck cards, which have the characters, and when you commit your character disappears from the card.
Yes.
Was that hard to pull off?
It was a trial and error thing. I don't think it was ever intended to do that. Like the intention was obviously like you see when you turn the card, the character goes from being there to transporting off of the card. And then when we got hold of them, it was like, oh look, when you actually do this, the same thing happens. You're like, oh, that's fantastic. It's the first time we've worked with that, and I don't think I've ever seen another card game CCG that had a lenticular card personally. So we didn't really have a point of reference for it. And as you can, I tried to take the best photo I could, but it's very difficult to zoom in on that. But like, we tried different types of lenticular card. They all work the same way. They're essentially just prisms, right? And depending on the view angle, depends on what you see. But you can go anywhere from I don't know what the technical term is, but like let's call them ridges, like a 2-ridge lenticular to like a 12-ridge lenticular. And that essentially, if you think of a ridge like an animation frame, the lower decks ones have 3 ridges, which is on, off, and then the half opacity transport. But if you had a 2-point, you would literally just have on and off. And if you had a 12-point, you would have to make 12 different stages of transparency to get an even smoother transition between that. So ours is a 3-point lenticular, or whatever the term is that they use. But it's just another one of those like fun, crazy things where it was like, hey, wouldn't it be cool if we could do this? And then we go and do some R&D on it, and you're like, oh, it's cost effective. We do some testing on like how we can actually apply this. How, functionally do we make this into something that can be printed? And we have great, print vendors and things that work with us on that. But it's also why when you opened the pack, you did get a second card that was not lenticular, because we were like, this could be difficult for people to read if it's at the wrong angle, if it's in the wrong lit space, and just people that have some difficulty with like reading things like that. So we were like, this can be the cool, almost souvenir card, but we'll put the foil one in there just as we would normally do.
If you are looking to talk about
you do again,
has there been any ideas that you've tried for previous IPs that have unfortunately either not been cost effective or just not worked in practice?
So far, everything we have tried has worked out. Scratch and Sniff was another one of, and I think only the UK viewers will get this, but Zoe and I, both being British, were like on just a call reminiscing about 90s TV, and we were talking about Noel's House Party.
Yeah.
And you remember back in the 90s, they had that Comic Relief thing, which had the Scratch and Sniff book that you bought for £1.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
We were like, oh man, could you imagine, like, and everything in it smelled like farts, right? So we were like, wouldn't it be hilarious if the original pitch was that we did the Scratch and Sniff card as an April Fool's Day joke, but we announced it as an April Fool's Day joke, and everybody would maybe think we were joking, but then the actual joke was that we did do the thing. So it was like this weird multi-layered like gotcha type thing, and then I think we just ended up being like, that's just too much hassle for marketing, so we'll just do it. But yeah, that was another thing we tried, and Zoe got sent like a book of smells, essentially, that she would just sit there and rub and see which one smelled the most like. Well, couldn't use fresh cut grass because the smell of fresh cut grass is mustard gas.
Oh, okay.
So that is not a smell that you want on your cards, or that you can get. So, so I think we ended up with lavender for the first card.
Eucalyptus?
Yeah, so
It was one of those, and then cedar, I think, was the promo one we did this holiday season.
That came up at Nats over the weekend. Someone had a sealed holiday fresh cut grass. I was like, have you smelt it? Like, what? And they opened it, and just like the look on their face of pure joy as they smell this, kind of like, that's amazing. I know, right?
yeah.
Yeah, when we released it on April Fool's, I don't think we had anything that said how to work it. And some people just bought it because it was like a cool card and didn't really read too much into it. But that's why this time we put the thing in there saying, this is how you use this, like get the most out of it. But as far as other things go, there's plenty of ideas that we have that we've been like, oh, we could do this. But then we were like, it doesn't really work for that IP. So they're all just kind of sitting in the back burner waiting for the right IP to come up. We've never had a situation where it's been like, no. It's always like, what is the coolest thing we can do for this IP and this product? And if it is the coolest thing you can do, then we do it. We don't tend to skimp on the things. It's like, lenticulars cost a bit more, but it was the coolest thing we could do for that project, so we did it.
I'm very excited to see what the coolest thing you could do for TMNT is then.
Yeah.
It's cool. I'm going to tell you right now, it is cool.
So you've got this kind of back catalogue of just like various drawers of just different sort of experiments and things you can do with cards. It's like, right, new set comes along, have a scroll through, what can we do here?
Exactly. And then you get, new team members coming in, and they'll have new ideas, and then they'll get added to the pile. It's great, and a lot of our team is have been around a while, have worked on different things in different industries, and so there's things that I've worked at video game publishers, but some of the other team members have worked at agencies that worked with video games, and they've done more exciting marketing based things, and so they can pull those levers and be like, oh, we like this could be a cool presentational thing, like moving the form factor of a Challenger series from just the plain, Bebop and Trigun box into the Godzilla windowed box was something that that was brought along from someone that joined and was like, this is, well, why don't we do this? And it not only makes the product feel more premium when you buy it because it is a Challenger series, but it just makes that a lot cooler. Whereas your starter decks are more entry level products, you want those to be more accessible price wise as well as gameplay wise for new players. So a new player to a game does not want to come in and spend $50 on something, but they'll spend 10 or $15 on something.
That makes a lot of sense. Has there been any hindsight 2020 kind of things where a second season of Soul Leveling's come out and you're like, oh, we could have done this, which would have been more cool? Or say a show has a season finale and you've printed for Alt-Art Cerritos and they do an entire finale of going through alternate versions of the Cerritos, for example.
Yeah, you do get that, and it just really comes down to time. By the time we had Star Trek done, the 5th season had not even started. So, and we don't get we're a licensee, so we don't get a lot of the time. Everything varies from team that you work with to other teams. But a lot of the time, you don't get a lot of upfront information. It's this is what we have, because the way that it works, and it works in most industries, is they want to sell the thing that people are familiar with. And so they'll give you what's out, but a lot of the time you don't get much advanced preview of what is happening. And also because those teams are so, these teams are huge, right? The licensing team is not talking to the production team in a company like Paramount a lot of the time because they're just so big and siloed, right? And, Titmouse in Canada is working on the animation. The licensing team for Paramount, wherever they are, is probably not going to know or have much idea what is being worked on, and that stuff wouldn't be ready then anyway, because if it was ready, it would be airing. So hindsight, yeah, I would love to do 10 different alts of. That's not to say you couldn't do that now that it's out, because now that it's out, the assets are there, right?
Yeah.
But you pinging me being like, oh, hey, I think we're going to get all of these things, these different variations of the Cerritos. And I'm like, I wish, but I didn't have those 8 or 9 months ago whenever I was finishing up the project.
But you are going to put them on the loyalty store, right? That's
I wouldn't say no. I think which one just came out? I almost gave it away there. The Strange New World one just came out on the loyalty store. Yeah. There may be some others coming out that I am very excited to see, and they are extremely nerdy and Easter eggy. I'm not sure when those are being potentially released.
No, that's fair. The Soul Leveling one is an Attack on Titan card or Soul Leveling skin, which is something we haven't really seen before, and it's also very far ahead in the kind of manhwa anime kind of style. So it's a huge swing for UVS, and everyone's kind of seen it and immediately fallen in love with this card because it just looks amazing.
That's the Death Rattle?
Yeah, Death Rattle, yeah.
Yeah.
You were just talking about not having access to some kind of future assets, but we do know for AOT 3, you did get access to some never before seen exclusive assets from the creator.
Yes.
And that's all he can talk about.
I don't know. You tell me what's been released to the public, and I can tell you what I can about it.
So we know that the Chromes, I believe, are going to be brand new exclusive art from the creator. That's all that's been revealed. I'm not gonna.
Okay. Yes.
I'm not gonna gotcha
that
here.
I can confirm what has been confirmed. It was yeah. We what can I say? We reached out and worked with Isayama's editorial team, his managers and stuff, and we're like, we think this would just be so cool. You know, the show obviously ended a while ago. They've got the movie that just came out or is coming out. Like, it's still like AOT is like, love it or hate it. It is really the anime that really got anime mainstream in the West, right? The manga had come out years prior to the anime being made, and it didn't really make a splash. But then, as soon as I think Crunchyroll picked it up and it aired, it became this cultural phenomenon because it was the first time people really saw it as an adult storytelling format, and you could tell these really visceral stories in an animated way that wasn't just, oh, it's just cartoons, right? And from then it's just, you know, just taken off and grown exponentially. And so as a celebration to, you know, the manga and Isayama, you know, we obviously had the signatures, and we've been working with him since set one to, you know, get to the point where we could get these. And he was kind enough to, you know, I can't believe that I got to draw up briefs and art direct Hajime Isayama. And then we get through these gorgeous pieces of art that you will see at some point when they're released, but they are just fantastic. They're so like, because, and being made specifically, you know, a lot of the time, my biggest issue, pet peeve, is like trying to take things that have been made for television and fitting them onto a square card. Everything is, you know, it's wide, it's for television. That's why comic books and manga panels work great, is because they are a multitude of different shapes and sizes. But being able to like send this template file, this Photoshop file to Isayama and have him draw to size was just, you know, I get this piece of art in and it's amazing. And I do that with all my other custom pieces, and the artists that work on all the customs, like they work to size. So they know how things are going to sit. They have all the template icons and stuff to make sure, you know, as you've seen, everything fits nicely and beautifully in the frame. But yeah, having someone of his caliber work on these for us, for these chromes, you know, I wish I could say more, but like until you see them, you really can't understand just how great they look.
We can always,
and you'll see also a progression in the treatment as well. Like you'll see there's theming going on between the chromes of set 1 to the chromes of set 2. There's a further evolution of the treatment of the chromes in with these customs in set 3.
That's a theory. But we can always get you back on once we've seen those. We can talk in depth about them. One of the great things I have seen about
me definitely not opening one, and my local Harry definitely opening one.
Yeah. One of the things I have seen about, like you were just saying about comics and the manga and things like that, capturing the action of attacks and the cards seems to be a lot easier with manga and comics, and like we're seeing with Critical Role with the dagger stuff and Godzilla and Attack on Titan. We can see it quite a bit with like the Buster MHA cards, but it must be a lot harder to try and capture action in a frame as opposed to the intended purpose of a panel of a comic or a manga, which is to display action.
Yeah, it's obviously, you know, like you said, you get an anime and it is a moving format, right? And so they can get away with lots of motion blur and animation trick, because animation's expensive, right? There's a lot of trickery that goes into making something move, making an attack look powerful, camera shakes. You know, I can't put a camera shake on a card and make it look cool. So I do what I can with things like speed lines and adding some motion blur to things if that's a possibility. But definitely when you get to a work with a comic book or a manga, those things are meant to be viewed in a a static format. And so, if say you got the My Hero manga, Deku punching is going to look a lot more powerful on that panel than perhaps the animated one might look, just because of the nature of the medium that it's in. And if playing cards could move, then yeah, that would be cool. If we were in this digital age where we had these cards that could play video, like we could do that all day. But it's really, just trying to pick the best screenshot that shows the intent. Like the things that are really difficult is when you get to like a prominence burn. It's just a lot of screaming. It's a lot of camera shaking. It's a lot of bright lights, and a lot of it is audio as well. Like a static frame with a booming bass and the violins going, and it really gets your emotions going. Like, wow, what a moment! But when you clip it and put it on a card, it doesn't translate the same way, and so you have to find a different, like, it's not the moment prominence burn happened, but it's the moment maybe leading up to it, and you have to look at it from that narrative perspective of like, this is the prominence burn, but it's the lead up to it. And when working with that format, that's how that happens. But like you said, when you work with the static format, someone screams prominence burn and that's the panel, like it's there.
Not to say you didn't take some liberties with comics as well. I mean, some of my favorite AOT cards are the ones where you break through the manga panel, like last second dodge, where it's literally dodging through the manga panels.
Yeah, and I think we have some later on, but what I'm really trying to do is now since we worked with Godzilla, it's opened this world of like comic books really do work, because they are representations of actions in static format. So we can bring some movement into it by breaking the panel. In the same way, like you look at Marvel Snap, right? And they have like, you level up the cards by the card frames, and you start off with the static thing, and then you get the frame break, and it looks more dynamic just by doing that. And then the frame cracks, and then it gets foiled, and you have these tools that you can pull to really give a card that little bit of plus ultra as it was.
That makes a lot of sense. We've talked about the screen grabs from anime. We've talked about the static of the cards. Yes. How's the games coming along? Because it was something that was done in the past with pre-UVS, but now you're getting Tekken, Street Fighter, Guilty Gear. How are you finding adapting games into cards?
Games is it's a tricky one. A lot of the time, because you have to be good at the game to get the shots that you want. And I think it's a reason that why fighting games are so niche is because you have to have that like split second thing. And if you don't know how to do it, it can be quite annoying, and you just go off and play Balatro, right?
I refuse to play them because my boy just beats me at them all the time. So So when it came to something like Street Fighter, it was a lot better to work with than a Street Fighter 5, maybe, because Street Fighter 6 the controls were simplified for that. And fortunately, I could go and look at the command list, and it would tell me the things, and I would just record myself playing, and then like keep going until I actually got the thing. And at that point, I can go through frame by frame and pick the one that works best for the format of the card, which is almost a 1-to-1 square format.
I know you don't do like the office recordings like the Joffers and stuff, but I would love to see someone just pop up on the official YouTube of the creative team sat there and be like, how do I do that combo? I can't. I don't have enough fingers to like pull off the combination.
I was not happy for a while because I was like, I don't know how to do this. And then I just sat with it for a night and got over that feeling of dread of like, I have to, because I've never been a huge fan because of the complexity of it. But after I got over it, I was like, oh, okay, it's not it's not what I need to do is not that bad. I can just put it on. What's better now than back when I originally played them many decades ago even, was that training room is no longer a training room. You can set up training room with the scene, so you can have Ryu's temple, and you can have the dummy opponent be a dummy and not move, and you can just keep doing the thing until you need to get it. Whereas old practice mode was like grey box room. It wasn't super interesting to look at. I wish we had some of the tools that the developers have, because the developers have full, they can go in and get any angle, and they can just select a move and the character does the move, right? They can just auto set these things like it's how they make trailers, right? But we just don't have access to those tools. I'm not familiar enough with computer coding to be able to go in and work with the engines and stuff. So we do the best with the tools that we have. And like I said before, if you get a move that is being done and it maybe has a lot of motion blur applied to the attack model, you can go in and apply filters and treatments and things to make the card feel more static or feel more powerful. And like I was saying, you pull those levers, and so you'll see there's treatments that I've done on the art for the cards that is not just a screenshot. It's like we've taken that still and then kind of stylized it a little bit so that I feel that it fits much better into sits well alongside the other things that we've done.
I think that's very cool to know that the majority of attacks that we're going to see on these cards is an attack that someone in the office had to pull off to get on the card.
Yeah, there's going to be a lot of people like that's not the best frame you could use. That the other thing is, like, you get, like, obviously your powerful moves are probably going to be moves that have cut scenes, right? And so at that point there's usually like lots of close-ups and camera shakes, and the same problems occur. So I can't even remember what the Ryu one was, but like a Ryu UR is gonna maybe not be the thing that you think of when he does the move, but it's the best thing that fit the card, right? When you take into consideration the placement he has to go in. If someone's like leaning down doing a high kick, you can't really use that, because then most of the character is covered up by card text and all you're seeing is a foot in the art space. And so that's not a great representation of the move. So again, you have to take some artistic license with what you put on there, because you obviously want your best thing to be in the thing that you can see and not hidden behind a wall of text.
Yeah. Like you say, it's about finding the coolest thing for the card.
Yeah.
And speaking of coolest thing for the card, let's take a look at the alt arts that you've sent over and talk a little bit about. Start off with what was the title that you sent me? Grog's Rage. We have on the left hand side the regular Grog's Rage, and then on the right hand side the alt art Grog's Rage. And
yes, let's
talk a little bit about how these decisions come out. How do you choose the alternate arts? How do you go from this is the coolest on the card to this is even cooler?
I'm a creative person. I just love making stuff, and so I follow naturally. Even before I had this job, I followed a lot of artists, and so my feeds and my sites that I go to are just filled with people that I'm like, this guy's cool, or this girl is amazing. I'd love to work with them on something. And then when you pull that list up when you have a project that's a good fit, and I don't want to say I rank them, but I put them where I feel like their energy would be focused best. There are studios that we use when we need to get like a lot of cards out with a similar quality bar. So Bad Moon, who worked on the Challenger Series art, is back here, and you'll see on the left Grog's Rage. They've worked on the base character cards, they've worked on the base URs and the base SRs, because we just needed a standard level of quality across all of those kind of higher rarity cards. and they do great work. And we went. People responded really well to the more graphic alt art style in the Challenger series for Critical Role. So I was like, well, let's do that more graphical kind of alt art look is going to blend really well with the comic book stuff that we have in Heroes of Exandria. So we'll use that style for all of those. And then when I need to do my character alts, my UR alts, my SR alts, I will go to people that I feel like a lot of the times it's people I might have worked with before who are really good communicators, because as cool as it is to work with some artists, some of them are better communicators than others. And when my job is really to just keep the production moving. And so I have deadlines, and it's like, if I know that you meet my deadlines, or if I send you an email, I will get a response within a decent amount of time, I'm more likely to go back and use you. And then I have new artists that come in that I want to give a go because I just think they're really good. And if it's a new artist, I'll usually give them like a smaller packet of things to work on, just so I can kind of gauge how good they are to work with on a professional level. So the artist on the right here, Lachar, he's a Brazilian artist who I came across, and just absolutely love his work. Like his forms, he blocks things out in silhouette and he sends me those, and he sends me like 4 or 5 sketches, and that's my hardest part of this project for me, was picking one of those 5 things every time he sent me something. Then he goes in and he builds the character out, and then he adds the lighting and the shadows, and then he adds the effects on last. And like you can see here, like Bad Moon does a really great pose for Grog's Rage. It's really like showing the might and anger of Grog, but then you really just feel it when you look at Lachar's work. And you'll see it on the rest of the SRs in the set. He really did just nail that sense of movement and energy and dynamicness, which is what you want. Like the SR alts are like, chromes aside, because only like 500-600 people pull a chrome. Like your SR alts are like the rarest cards you can get, like the best cards that we put out, and so you want to put the best art on those. And I really think for me these are the best non-chrome pieces that I've worked on from a custom perspective.
That makes a lot of sense. So you said you got like a list of artists that you go to when you got to do alt art, something like that. When it came to the regional promos, however, we did get some cool bespoke art with like the suit, villains, and whoever did the dabby needed to be paid more. That was a gorgeous, sexy dabby. But the Godzilla alt arts for the the movie posters, how did that come about?
So are you talking specifically about the Challenger series alts, or are you talking about the movie posters?
I'm talking about the movie posters. The Challenger alts are absolutely gorgeous, but movie posters was a very interesting choice, which people did respond to quite well. But it's not something you could have pulled up from your list of artists. It must have been something that was
no. So obviously, like I said, we get access to DAMs, digital asset management systems, where the licenses dump everything that you're able to use. So character models, movie stills, comic book pages, whatever it is you have, they will usually put on their system. And for the characters that we had licensed, which was Godzilla, Ghidorah, etc., we had all of these things available. We had movie assets from the movies that they had been in, and then there was a folder of movie posters. And I'm not sure. I don't think I picked that one. I'm not sure. It might have been a suggestion from Jeremy. I honestly couldn't tell you, but it sounds like something Jeremy might have come up with. But it was like, wouldn't it be cool if we tried doing a movie poster on a promo? Because the promos are like, everyone, you can go a little bit more crazy with a promo. Like you want your base cards to be functional and playable, because everybody is going to get those and play with them. If you get the alts, you want them to be a little bit extra cool, but still playable. But the promos you can go wild with, because only a handful of people are going to get them. and it lets you try certain things out. Like movie posters could have gone, if you put it on the card and then it just doesn't work because of the amount of text on there, we wouldn't have released it. But then we found a way to make it work, and then we're like, we'll put it out and see if people like that kind of thing. And so we put it out, people respond well to it. It lets us know that next time if that opportunity comes up, that is another lever that we can pull.
Yeah, you can lean a lot harder into the realm of collector piece rather than game piece, right? When it comes to those realms, like when it comes to those extra alt art sort of, outside of maybe purchased product, when it's promotional product, it doesn't have to necessarily then be that game piece. It can be more of a collector piece, a nice thing to have that looks really cool rather than necessarily something that's functional.
Yeah, I think collector piece is a good way to put it. There's kind of the tiers, not that we rank these things, but you do have like the play set, and then you have the collector's stuff, which I guess is where most of the alts would fit in. And then you get promos are kind of split between like event promos and mostly OP promos, and those are for players, so you want those to feel special. I guess they are collectible, but they are not for collectors. Those are rewards for people that have played well and come out to support the game and that kind of thing.
Yeah, and it goes back to what you're saying about, say, the not being able to put always the move on the card because it doesn't fit. If you had, say, a Chun-Li kick that didn't fit on the card, you could always print a textless promo of the full body kick as a collectible kind of reward for taking part in a regional or a local play.
Yeah, I mean, no text promos is something that we have discussed. I don't think we've ever pulled the lever on it. The only time we ever did that was the... Oh, did we?
Yeah, the Godzilla movie posters have no text. They have a hand size and a health.
Oh God, you're totally right. I forgot. I was thinking of the Bug-Eye MHA ones, which were like the double-sided. One side had no text. It's a collector piece. You can put it down, not as a proxy, but kind of a proxy. Like you play it, and you need to know what it does, etc.
There were people playing the textless version at Nationals, but they had the reference one in their deck box or nearby in case their opponent did need to read it.
And everyone knows what Godzilla does. Come on.
Not everyone. There's new players.
He is a menace.
Mm-hmm.
I acknowledge he's a menace. I've died many times to him.
But it is great to hear like how the alt arts do come about and like how much work goes into it. Because like you're saying, 7 different drafts, 7 different sketches, all to make sure Grog looks like he is well and truly raging. Sounds like you've got a lot of passionate people working behind it.
Yeah, and then the other thing we do is frame based things. So you'll see like we'll take the full color icons and we'll make them like monocolor, so just a black or a white or a gold or a foil. Just to if something is a promo, you know what that is. If you've got to that level that you've won that promo, like you don't necessarily need something that is orange to tell you something is an attack. Like hopefully the art can show that, or you just remember it from the card name.
That makes a lot of sense. And looking at the cards you sent over with that very conveniently blurred out abilities.
Yes, again, I didn't know what had been shown or not, so I thought just safer to just blur everything out.
These are looking absolutely amazing, but the one I do want to kind of narrow in on first is the boss cards. How is it creating art for the Manticore and Anna Ripley, the Briarwoods, Kovac and the Herd?
Yes, it was very fun. We saw from the Critical Role Challenger series that people loved playing the PV experience, and so we wanted to bring that back again with Critical Role being a more of a co-op kind of IP. We wanted to bring those back and give people more options in when they did in how they played. So and things that again scaled depending on how many people were playing. And these, I think there's 6 total, and they have different toughness levels as well. So you'll see like there's like a 3 toughness level and a 5 toughness level. So some will be more beginner friendly and some will be like more for the hardcore people. And then we printed, when we did the original one, it was like a big PDF of like, if you roll a dice and these numbers mean this, and then this is how the phases work. And so when you get these, they'll have like the dice specific abilities on them depending on what you roll. They'll have on there like how much health they have per player playing against them. And then there'll be another card that comes with just the cheat sheet of like turn orders and rules and stuff. So rather than have somebody there on their phone, we're hoping that it can just be more of a 2-card kind of thing that people can just have on the table and refer to.
That's pretty cool. Yeah, Tim Free has just put up a new article going over like design choices of the traits, and then there was a little bit on the bosses. And I didn't think he mentioned that there's different levels, and the Manticore is where he'd recommend most people start.
Yeah. The Briarwoods also come back. I think the Briarwood mechanics are pretty much the same as they were in the first one, because why reinvent the wheel? But then there's the other ones as well. That
could also just be the tagline for Critical Role. The Briarwoods have come back.
Exactly. They have returned.
Somehow the Briarwoods returned.
Yeah, but the boss cards just let you also bring in characters that don't necessarily make it in the set. Like everyone wants to play as the hero. Some people want to play as the villain. But as far as player characters go, there was just so many. Obviously, everybody's had 1 or 2 characters per campaign, and then you want obviously to give Matt some representation in there. So we've got Matt's characters as well, and then you'll see other kind of NPCs sprinkled throughout the set, but really focusing the boss cards on, as these encounters was a choice we made. Was like, where do we put these in the set? Why have it as a character when it makes sense to just have it as a boss?
Yeah, it's one of those things that Anna Ripley is a kind of shadow Percy. So how do you adapt Anna Ripley without making her just like Percy? Oh, we'll make her a PvE boss.
Yeah, and I don't think Orthax is represented in Percy's game mechanics, and so like, how do you bring Orthax in? Like, the set is not based off of anything that's in the show, even though it's all the same story. But we know that a lot of people's entry point to Critical Role, especially from our existing player base, is going to be more familiar with that show, and so we wanted to bring in characters that they would be familiar with. So they would know Anna Ripley. They would know from the 3rd season, Anna Ripley and Orthax are together. The Briarwoods were obviously season 1.
And you got Kovac season 1, Manticore from the upcoming Mighty 9 animated series that's coming soon.
Yep.
And from what I can see, the range of where the art is coming from is also very vast, because you've got some like the Origins comics worked in, you've got some of the new arts coming in, and you've got kind of just some parts of the table just adapted into art as well. So it's kind of true to all media of Critical Role, from the show to the Origins comics.
Yeah. So again, when Critical Role sent us everything they had a lot of they work with, they're very community focused I guess company, right, is what they are now. And so a lot of their work that they get done is they work with their fan artists to either buy the rights to the art, or they hire them to create official art that they can use. So we get whatever they have from that. There were pieces that I found online that I was like, we wanted to bring some of that community into our game, and bring some of the love for their community back into our game. So I went through and I found like, this is a great piece from this fan artist, and I think midway through their episode, when they have their break, they have the fan art gallery. So I went through a bunch of those. And I sent them a list, and I was like, are any of these available? Like, can we reach out to these people? And in a lot of instances, they were very excited about, the artists were very excited about coming on board. So we worked with Critical Role, wonderful licensing team. Shawnette's great. And we worked with them to bring that in. We got the Origins comics, which let us bring in a bit more of that narrative stuff. That's what I love most about the working with the comic book stuff is it lets you, we started to bring in, with AOT, we brought in the flavor text.
Yeah.
And what I want to start exploring is like, we've got flavor text. How can we bring that into the art in some way and make the art feel more narrative? So you'll see here in like Fade to Black, it's like we have 3 panels that literally is Vex and Vax fading to black.
Mm-hmm.
We've got tarot reading, which shows Molly and Bo around the campfire, like doing a tarot reading. Same with Caleb doing his spell. Like you see the action of him doing the spell, and so like as much as I would love, video cards, which we can't have, we can do the next best thing, which is like tell a story through the art, and try and bring some of the narrative into it that way. Because Critical Role again it's all about it's theater of the mind. It's imagination. It's all about storytelling. So how do we bring storytelling into every part of the experience that we're giving people?
One of the things that I always found quite cool, sort of way back as I used to play Magic, is when they sort of almost like had a cycle of cards that told a story.
Yeah,
whether that's through like the art almost matching up, or like the flavor text kind of telling a story throughout that flavor text, or even going back to, I think it was probably something like 96, like there was a poem or a song that had like parts of it over lots of the different parts of the cards in Mirage, I think it was. But yeah, like I quite like that in a game where you've got like a set of cards that are, not necessarily the full set, not necessarily the full story of the full set, but like telling a story within that.
Yeah. Again, it's something we are aware of. It's something that that I particularly would love to explore, things like multi card art frames, right? It's and we kind of got there a little bit in this set. Like you've seen the Amon card. It's like the action that has the mountain or the castle.
Yeah.
That's part of a triptych. Yeah, so you'll see like this was all of the vinyl soundtrack that they had created, and so that's 3 panels of that. And so if you put those 3 cards next together, I don't think it lines up perfectly, but like trying to bring in things like that, like you said, to make those mini cycles is something that I'm definitely looking at doing more, trying to get more of in the future, is like have cards that line up. You'll see actually a couple of character cards do that, although they're not next to each other. You'll see like if you put like Vex and Vax together and Jester and Not together, because we've already done them as Challenger Series, I wanted to give them kind of like a 2-up. So while they don't sit next to each other in a binder, if you put them next to each other, you'll see that the art does line up. And little fun things like that is it's just nice to pepper in every now and again, and it just keeps things interesting.
I'm gonna have to now scour through my socials. I don't know if it was on YouTube or Reddit, but somebody was asking if we're going to see the rest of that art from the vinyl, and then I'm going to have to go and find them and go, yeah, check it out. We are going to see it.
No leakers.
Yeah.
I don't think we'll see the last part, because the last part is in Bell's Hells, and this set does not cover anything in Bell's Hells. Bell's Hells wasn't finished, so
it's hard
because we were working on this most of last year.
It was one of the things because, like you said, you were working on this. It's like Hell's Bells was still going, and it's hard for you guys to predict what's going to happen when even Matt doesn't know what's going to happen, because it's up to the players.
Yeah, we did not know what was going to happen to FCG.
Yeah, that was that was awkward timing.
I think we got a heads up about that maybe a week before release. I can't quite remember, but we were like, "Oh man, we did." No one saw that coming other than Sam.
Yeah, that's just how it goes. That goes down sometimes.
Yeah.
I am really looking forward to some the references and Easter eggs and stuff going on. I've been talking on Discord about getting an action called the Mighty Nine with just the flavor text of "There's 7 of you." But yeah, it's one of the things that it must have been so hard for both you and the design team to take essentially 10 years of gameplay and compress it into these cards.
It would have been if Tim was not a mega fan who was maybe the 20th person ever to watch their stream.
Okay.
Wow.
So Tim is very much the critter, right? Tim was one of the people, you've watched the early streams, Tim is one of the people that ordered them pizza.
Right.
That's how long Tim has been a fan of Critical Role. So he was very much a rock that I leaned on. I obviously ingested all the comics. I ingested the shows. I watched a lot. The community is rabid, so I was able to go and watch a lot of people that did the fan animation cut downs, where it was like, quick recap of episodes 10 through 20, and they would like fan animate them, or they would just walk you through what happened. And Critical Role even did some themselves. They did the animated recaps that Danny would narrate. And so watching all of those, I was able to take in 800 plus hours of content within half a day. And then if anything stuck out, I could go and then reference that specific episode or deep dive into a forum to get answers to specific things. A lot of, you'll see like on here, like suggestive spell and tarot reading, like that's original comic book art that we got done. We got maybe 32, 34 pages of comic book art done. The just cover, because a lot of the Origins comics focused on Vox Machina. There wasn't a lot for Mighty Nine. And the Mighty Nine stuff was also done by different artists, whereas the Vox Machina ones were all done by Olivia Sampson. So with all the different styles, it was like, I want there to be a kind of a more cohesive feel to some of these. So I picked an episode, I think it was season 2, episode 26, and basically just got the whole thing illustrated, and was able to, pick art from that and put it in the game. Which is fun because I've never written a comic book before. But when I had specifics about what was this character wearing at this time, because they obviously go through different outfit changes as they level up. It's like, what level were they? What was the outfit? And then you cross-reference the official art, and then you send that to artists, and you get that back, and you send it to get notes from their team and Danny the Lawkeeper, and then you come back and you adjust that stuff. Typical kind of revision process.
I'm just trying to think.
But overall, I don't know if I mentioned it, but like 30 plus artists on this set, between customs, comic book artists, fan artists. Yeah.
I'm just trying to think, because unlike you, I did not really do much research, and I didn't know there was an abridged version. I just in October put episode 1 of the podcast.
You look like you were having so much fun watching it. I didn't want to tell you that.
I am now, and when you said like campaign 2, episode 26, I'm just looking at the art now, going, is that one on the way to the island and they get attacked by goblins? And I'm like, oh yeah, because that Bo gets the tower.
No, that's the one where Molly. Spoilers.
Oh yeah, around that time, yeah. I'm still getting not going to get into it with the Molly spoilers.
No spoilers.
No spoilers.
But no, it's really good. Every so often during the podcast, because I don't get to watch, I don't get to see any of Sam's amazing shirts or any of the art. I listen to it as I'm doing other stuff. But I get to hear the Liam O'Brien ads where he's talking about being the resident art dad and how much they appreciate the community art book, art, and they even made a community art book that they sold and had.
They've done a couple of art books. They've done some art shows in Vegas, I think. Again, Tim was at that. That was a few years back. But yeah, they're really obviously Laura's in charge of like the shop stuff. Liam's art dad, so a lot of the stuff I sent to our licensing contact would go to Liam to review, and then anything that was character specific would then go to whoever that person was who was the character. So they would be able to see and give notes, like if someone's hair didn't look that way at that point, or wasn't that tone of color, like they could give any notes that they wanted to give.
Yeah. So,
but yeah, one of the greater, they're very aware of what they have, and they have something special, and they're just great to work with, all of them.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. So going off our reveal, which was ESIC, I guess Matt had a lot of basically saying, well, this was how he'd stand, this is how he present himself for a character card, and was able to kind of influence how his character would be perceived into the card game as well, which is really cool.
Yeah. I mean, he just kind of when he does it, he acts as that character. So you can just kind of take that regalness or whatever, or that kind of he does all of his, you just really that's why he's so great, is you can instantly get what he's going for. So easy to interpret.
Yeah, it's also why he's
and so also hard. He's just, I was fortunate enough to go to the office and play. I met Matt and Liam, and really are just every interview you see with them, they're just lovely people, and I can vouch, they're just lovely people.
That must have been absolutely awesome.
It was. Again, Tim was there.
Of course, Tim was there.
Tim was starstruck. Yeah,
that sounds really cool. Right, well, we've got half an hour left on our time. The time you brought it out for us, so let's move on to the last bit, and probably the thing we're going to talk the most about.
Okay.
The design and feel of the Critical Alt Art characters.
Yes. So without showing too much, what I can show you is I pulled these out because I was fortunate enough to get my my brick, as we call it, my review copy, and so I was able to see the designs that. So Aaron, who works on the card layout, was able to take these patterns that we were given. So Critical Role, when they give us their assets, there's a folder of things that are character specific patterns. They're repeating, you can just tile them, right? Mm-hmm. So he was able to take those and build it's called a plate, a kind of a varnish plate, and for each character, and put their specific design on it, and then create the pattern, the area where that pattern would go. And this looks like a varnish, but it's actually a chemical emboss. And Zoe's briefly mentioned this before on a prior stream. This was first done with the Critical Role Challenger series, actually, and then we did some in other sets. But what this basically is in the simplest possible terms, it's essentially like a glue plate. And so what is done is a layer is put down where this pattern is, and then another liquid or whatever is put on top of that. So if you think of it two reactants coming together in the same shape, and that creates this reaction that gives you that kind of glittery, it's a chemical reaction. It's an emboss that is chemical, and it gives you that pattern in the shape that in the area that you put it. And so that what I find interesting about that is that although the pattern looks the same on each card is unique in its fingerprint, because the chemical reactions will differ each time a reactant touches the initial plate.
Okay, so these are actually sort of textured to an extent, basically.
Slightly, yes. You'll feel a slight texture on these, as well as them being raised. You should also feel a slight texture on them.
Was there many hoops you had to jump through? Because although it's the Critical Role set, a lot of their world comes from another IP. And when you look at things like Pike with their deity, and Vax with the matron, and you've got the very sort of crow and wings, it Did you have to be very careful not to get too close to the other IPs?
The thing that we shall not name.
Yeah, the thing I'm very dancing around.
Yeah. So it's not
All
a
sorts of the
thing.
beach.
Yes, it is not a thing that we would have done anyway, because that is not the thing that we are licensing. We are licensing the world of Exandria and the characters within it. But they are also very aware of things that they are allowed to do. If you look at their own products, there are alterations in and in their show, they call certain things because things just it's the world of licensing. You can't take someone else's thing and pass it off as your own. And so if for us it's simple because we just change a name, right? It's not super tough for us. You'll see a bunch of keywords and traits assigned to characters and things, and they will, we make them as obvious as possible to be as close to source as you would expect. But it won't be a one-to-one, but it will be obvious what that thing is.
I do like the Caleb one we've got in the center top right. The kind of that fire effect just looks gorgeous, even from the image. I'm gonna have to track down a firebug alt art. That just looks so good.
Yeah, that one's fun, and when you actually look closely at that has circular magic runes inside it.
Ooh.
Like magic spell runes, like a Doctor Strange type thing. The artist who did these alt arts is the same artist that did the original FCG artwork, the April Fool's Day one.
Oh, that's really cool.
Yeah. So his name's Christian. He goes under the name Voyager Illustrations. Check his stuff out. His stuff's amazing. Very kind of detailed like this. Great use of colors. And again, having worked with him before on that, knowing that he was a great communicator, I was super confident in handing him whatever it is, 20 character cards and being like, I need these in this amount of time. Is this reasonable? Yes. Okay. Here's your 50% up front. Go for it. Send all the references. A lot of the times I'm just sending, it's the other thing is that if you get a really good artist, you can just send them a very loose description of what you're after, some references, and they will do a lot of the heavy lifting for you. There are times when I get very specific about something I have an intention for this card to convey this thing, and I want it to look like this. And other times I can be like, this person needs a cool magic pose, or this person needs to look suave, and they'll just block some sketches out and send me some options. It's very fun. It's a very fun job I have, and I'm so grateful that I have it. It's one of the best jobs I've ever had.
Awesome.
Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense, and it kind of does make a lot of sense that if they've been working with you a while, that if you ask them for something, they'll kind of know what you're after, and then you just kind of direct them into the finished product.
I'd imagine you end up getting probably a better end product when you can just say, keep your description as loose as possible and let them just do their thing.
Yeah. Again, I'm a creative person. What you really have to do is never give somebody a blank page. Yeah. Because this is the most daunting thing to get hold of is you give them the limitations. You say you are free to do this. These are the things that you cannot do. And by giving somebody almost like a limited color palette, they're able to work better, knowing what they cannot do because they work within the restrictions. And then the other thing I want to do is I'm always I don't want to. I pull people in on projects that fit, but I'm also aware that I don't want to keep using the same people because then sets, while I want them to look cohesive, I don't want them to all be the same. So I don't want to use the same person for 3 sets in a row. So I'm always, looking at portfolio days when they happen on socials, looking at new artists. People send me referrals. If anybody wants to send me referrals, it's a lot easier to get referrals sent to me. Otherwise, I spend a day just going through stuff and reaching out to people. And I'm just asking them, like, what are your rates? What are your turnaround times? What's your availability? And then, I'll plan, I'm probably working on Q2 26 now. I'm looking to be working like 12, 18 months out from a project, or at least lining up who's working on that project. And while we might not have details at that point, you're starting to form that vision of what that set will be.
Feel free not to answer this, but I've got to ask it since you're asking about portfolios and stuff like that.
Uh-oh.
Has there been any close calls or interactions with AI artists trying to get in on projects or sending you references?
No, fortunately, I have not had any. Like, I vet people very thoroughly before I work with them, and I would never. I actively protest against the use of AI art. There's just so many talented people in the world. Why would I want something that is not an original piece, right? There's that, because to me it is art, right? You're not just paying for a picture, you're paying for art. That's how I approach it, and everyone on my team who is a specialist in their discipline takes that responsibility very seriously. Like, I take the art very seriously. I try and make it as good as possible, relate as much as possible to the mechanics that are on the card, with the understanding that sometimes compromises have to be made based on what's available. Aaron and Derek, who work on icons and frames, they take that very seriously, because that, they're focused on what looks cool, but also legibility. Like, you'll see some changes in upcoming sets that move more in a way that make the cards more visually accessible for people that need that level of accessibility, and it doesn't detract. I think when people think sometimes of things being made accessible, it's they don't always see it in a positive light, but it actually, like, the things that I know that are coming up actually make the cards look way cooler, and that is a trend that we are continue to build on. One of the pitfalls of, like, working at a company of scale that needs to work so far out is that when we do something and we put it out and we don't hear feedback until 8-9 months later, and then we hear the feedback, and if we choose to work on that feedback then doesn't actually make it into a product for another 8-9 months. And so it is it's like people, I hear conversations people have where it's like, oh, we don't listen, and because people are passionate about the game and they want it to be as best as it can, and so do we. Like, sometimes the company card gets thrown around, and personally, I just am like, I can tell you that everybody I work with is not we need to make money to have a job, but we really are just trying to make the coolest thing there is. And we do listen. That just takes time, because we got to get the thing made, get it to market, hear the feedback, and then implement it. And that just, can take over 12 months to get those things made in. So be vocal, be constructive in feedback is what I say, because telling us the reasons behind things that people think are an issue is a lot easier to solve a problem than it is to just try and figure out what somebody's problem is. Like, tell us why something isn't working, and it's easier for us to make an actionable point of it. Which is why, like I said, we've made changes to accessibility and things that are coming up. We heard that a while back, just can't implement it until these upcoming products.
Yeah, the wheels of change move slowly, especially when you're so far ahead. I know accessibility and visual, like the visual side of things, has been something that's been very important to Richard and their locals, especially after, like, the Obsidian card, which admittedly looked very cool, just are very hard to read.
Yes, unfortunately, those were like, you can kind of put those in that collector's bucket, not to dismiss it, but it's like there is an alternative to that you can read, right? And some things are a swing, some things are a miss. some things work for some people and some things don't work for others. We try and give the options there for everybody to try and find something that works for them.
Just checking chat, but yes, you've already answered someone's asking about how detailed art briefs are. What would be your chase card of the alt art Critical Role? You've seen like they're all really cool, they're like textural. What's the character you find the best looking?
Ooh, the chase character.
Just from a purely artistic perspective.
Purely artistic design. So like,
let me look, and not let you look.
Leaks.
Where's Matt when we need him to prove that we get a look?
I would say, hang on, who's been revealed?
Which that's also another part of it.
I think it's pretty obvious who is going to be in the set.
Yeah,
I would say
revealed. We've got Caduceus, Isak, Bo, Caleb. We've just had Percival done and Mollymock.
Okay, I would say
a character yet to be revealed is his favourite.
I would say, honestly, the Mollymock character ult is pretty banging. Compositionally, for me, in the way that the art works on the card, I think the Jester character ult for me is
see a lot of that
probably my favorite of the alt cards.
You can sort of see like the Jester with the radial behind them, and the pattern in the cloak, looking like
just I think things that have like those halos always just like basic forms work really well in art. So like squares, triangles, circles, like basic geometry always works really well. And I think that just compositionally is one of the stronger character alts that just when you have them on a binder page, that really does stand out.
Looking very much like an apostle of the Traveler with that kind of pose with the radio behind.
Exactly.
Right. So if there was an IP that you could bring in just from a purely like art perspective, what would it be? Like what would you be your dream thing to work from?
From an art perspective?
Yeah, I guess so. I mean, I guess it's partially like what IPs you love and stuff, but like what would you love to be able to do that kind of artistic side on and just go ham in the card game?
See, this is one of those questions where like I could answer, but if I answer, people will either think that it's not coming because I've answered or it is coming because I've answered. So it's like, do I say something?
Yeah.
I can point out some things that have good visuals that would be cool to have in the game. One of which I think, obviously, if you look at the world of, I'm a big video gamer, so you look at things like Persona 5, any Persona, right? Just massively stylistic. You look at things like not Hi-Fi Rush, Bomb Rush Cyber, Jet Set Radio, Bomb Rush Cyberpunk, like those things, just very stylistic. And if anyone ever played Other Side, but it's like just very black and white, almost near looking, black and white and red, just very strong things that have strong palettes, I think.
Okay.
I think like when there were discussions when we were doing AOT, it was like, how do you translate manga to this? Do we keep it black and white? Do we color it? Do we do things to the line art? And all these discussions happen. And that's why we ended up with Pearls and Obsidians, because it was a very strong kind of look. And so I think when you contrast it against frames and icons and things like that, anything that has a limited or defined palette, like a Persona or something, would be very fun.
So you just mentioned Pearls and Obsidian. We have got a question in chat that you may or may not be able to answer. We've got the alt-art characters. Are we going to be seeing any special treatments to foundations, backups, assets, attacks in text that is going to be like an Obsidian Pearl equivalent?
I I did send you UR alts.
Oh,
Which
those are
is-
UR alts.
I did. I sent you the SR ones, which was the Grog one, and I sent you.
Yeah,
I sent you the Vex one.
Yeah, I've just put them up here. The Hunter's Ally, Spire of Conflux, and Nature's Tempest.
Yes, there you go. So the Spire of Conflux, and which is what are they called? The Vestige of Divergence,
Yeah.
and then the Keyleth card. Those are both UR alts. So again, much like you saw with Grog's Rage, has that comic booky graphic kind of look that Bad Moon did, and then we've taken that art and then recolored it to like a two-tone color for the UR alts. So you'll see a lot of contrasting, like blues and oranges, yellows and greens, that kind of thing on the UR alts, and those also will have, I think, monocolor icons, if I remember rightly. So those do look very, very, very sleek.
There's someone in chat asking if we can show off some Yasha art, but we haven't got any to show off, unfortunately.
If you go back a few slides, you've got Pact of Wrath, which already got revealed.
That's
yes, I do. There is Yasha art, which is great. We had several options for what she looks like, but where are they? Yes, they do have mono icons. But yeah, I can't, unless it's been revealed, I don't have clearance to show you anything other than what has been shown on here. But there is Yasha art, and it does look great. There are several pieces of original cool Yasha art.
I mean, you said there's Yasha art, but it looks great. I can't imagine there'd be a card that you went, oh no, that one looks terrible.
Yes, terrible. Don't no, that's definitely not the chase card.
This is where we need to get Tim Free on so he can just say, oh no, these cards are terrible. Just give them all to me. So, the last thing I want to touch on personally is what do you do outside of UVS? I know you spend a lot of time making these amazing cards, but have you got any special hobbies or interests when you're out of work?
I touch a lot of things. I'm one of these people that's a little bit magpie-ish in that I get very into one thing and then I get down a rabbit hole and then I move on to something else. So like I was building a video game for a while, and then I stopped and I moved on to like learning Blender for a while, playing video games a lot. I have 2 kids, so they've taken up a lot of my free time. But when I do get free time now, what I'm actually doing is working on a book series, which I'm finding. It's a thing that I've always worked in the visual kind of fields of art, and so I've spent the past year or so learning how to adapt. Like I said, I was working on a video game. I'm adapting that into a book series and learning how to not only adapt it, but how to write in a way that makes sense and in like a manuscript form. There's different grammar rules and all this stuff, and it all sounds very boring when you try and explain it to people. But I find the details of things like that fascinating.
I'm sure you can have a great conversation with my partner. They write dating sim games.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So
I mean, they never go out of fashion. So
it's really, really cool. But yeah, it's a lot of hard work, and I'm really enjoying getting your YouTube updates as to how it's all going along.
Yeah, I don't have to plug it or anything, but like if anybody follows me on Twitter or Blue Sky or whatever, like I put stuff on there. Hoping to have the first one out. Like I said to you earlier, I've just finished my second draft and I'm hoping to have that out in the next few months. So, I can I've had a couple of editors look at it already that I paid, and they told me it was good, but you take it with a grain of salt when you pay someone to edit it and they tell you it's good. So I'll get some honest feedback in a few months and we'll see. Hopefully the pursuit sticks.
That's right. I think I'm out of questions. Richard, anything on your side?
Yeah, no, I think we've sort of covered everything really. You know, we've obviously managed to learn a lot about, I guess, how that pie is made, right? In terms of all the work and various processes you guys go through in terms of getting those cards to the table, right? There's a lot that goes into it, whether that's working at all those different layers, spending however long it was, literally sort of taking dots after dots after dots off bits of artwork to.
I have so many clips of me like that I've sent to people on the team that was like, this is how long it takes to erase dots on a face. Yeah, but I also just want to like call out, it's not like, although I'm here talking, it is not like, it's not just me. It does take a small village. Like obviously Zoe is,
of course.
Zoe is the leader that has assembled a great team. I get to work with a great team of people who are very passionate about what they do. You know, you look at like, you know, things like packaging, like that seem like just the most everyday normal thing, but the amount of care that goes into the packaging that's made, all the marketing stuff that's done, the card shots that are taken, you know, the card layouts themselves, everybody on the team, like the unsung heroes, production and logistics that actually like go through the rounds of getting things printed and proofed and, you know, working with licensors and printers and all of these other things. It does take a village, and I just want to call out those people that are like the unsung, not unsung heroes, but like, you know, the people that don't get to come on and have these, I guess, more like publicly interesting conversations. But they are like, none of this is possible without them, and they give me the opportunity to come on here and talk to you about all the great stuff that we do.
I have spoken to Matt about possibly coming on. He's like, but I haven't really got anything that will be interesting for people to hear. I was like, yeah, that's fair. But yeah, we've had Zoe on a couple of times, and like you're saying, everyone who's spoken to Zoe or interacted with her knows how passionate she is, and having that kind of person leading the group must kind of instill and rev up your passion for the projects as well.
Absolutely. I will go on record as saying I've never had a better boss. Like I would take a bullet for her. She is like, she is responsible for putting together an amazing team, but also like keeping you motivated when you get feedback that makes you want to just die on a Monday morning. Like, I just rolled out of bed, I don't need this right now. She'll come in and she just keeps it positive, and you know, is now getting more involved. Like, she's always been involved with licensing, but now is like more of a key pillar in it. So is going to be helping guide the vision of upcoming products. Really is good at, like, as you know, like really good at communicating and building relationships. And so she goes out and builds those relationships with licensors and potential licensors, and opens up all these, her and Paul open up all these doors for us. You know, I don't know if you guys have ever met Paul, but like, again,
we've both had the pleasure of meeting him.
Yeah, just infinitely positive, right? He just has,
absolutely.
It always has some idea going off in his head, right? And just genuinely is like somebody that is in it to, like, in it for the long haul, right? Wants to just keep making the cool stuff, wants to make people happy, puts out the announcements and the surveys and listens. You know, really is just like, as much as of a community as it feels for you guys and the Discords and the game groups, it feels like as much of that internally as well. And you know, I'm fortunate enough, I get to go play weekly with like Richard Cruz and Andrew Porat, and you know, I get to hear feedback from them, and it's just, you know, just it is definitely like, of all the fandoms that exist, which can be on a sliding scale of you know, joy and stuff, it is one of the better ones.
I don't. We got another last question in chat, but I don't think you will be able to do this. But it's just saying, can you speak about the art process or excitement treatments for upcoming products such as Street Fighter or TMNT?
I did touch on Ninja Turtles. It has one of those new, never before seen treatments, but I cannot tell you what that is yet.
Pizza flavor.
We'll definitely get you back on closer to Team.
It is not rub and sniff pizza smells because nobody wanted a carton that smelled like cheese.
I don't know.
That was quickly vetoed. It was like, no, we don't want cheese smell in our boxes.
That's fair. But we'll definitely get you on closer time because we're getting the new play packets as well around TMNT, which has got the alt arts and the new parallel foils as well from Paul's post. So lots of exciting stuff for you guys to be deciding and choosing and stuff like that. I think I'm completely out of questions.
Yeah, I think
if you guys want to like have another call when more stuff, like anything through the end of the year is already off my plate. It's already done. So at any point, if you want to ask questions about that, I'm happy to come back on and talk again.
We'll get in contact with Matt anytime. You, Zoe, anyone from design, anyone from UVS is more than welcome to come here and talk about how passionate they are for the work, what's coming up and coming. We'll sit here and chat with you for a couple of hours. It's more than fine. Like you're saying, you've got that community aspect at the company. As much as it might not be the best idea to mix world, it would be great to see more of your community from our community.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think a round table could be a fun idea. Like Matt says he doesn't have anything, but like bring Matt on with Josh or Levi or me, and we can, just bounce off each other, right? I think that could be fun.
Levi could bounce off anybody. I'm so excited to see him at Worlds. I missed him at Nats.
I had the pleasure of meeting Levi at Level Up Expo and heard the stories of him deadlifting Guile by the swimming pool in the hotel.
Have you seen
Which might or might not happen again this weekend because I'm going to Nats in Dallas. So if anyone's there, I'll see you there and we'll see if Levi's going to be deadlifting Guile by the pool.
Have you seen the clip of him pole dancing at last year's Worlds?
I did see that.
I'm hoping
I didn't know calves could get that big.
Well, no. So there you go. Anyone going to Nats, go find Hitch and try and get some more information on Critical Role.
I'm in for the info.
Maybe find some cards that he worked on and get your double-sized trinket signed.
There you go. Happy.
But thanks for coming on, man. Anytime you want to come back, anytime, get Matt to reach out to us or we'll reach out to Matt and we'll get it all sorted. It's been great having you here and I look forward to having you disrupt any more of my theories on YouTube in the future.
Happy to. Thanks for having me on, guys. It's been an absolute pleasure.
Yeah, thank you very much for joining us. And obviously, everyone in chat, thanks so much for watching along. And obviously, everyone on YouTube, thank you for watching. Do all the things. And obviously, go check out Hitch's Twitch and not Twitch,
YouTube.
Twitter and YouTube, and go see all the stuff he's
I'm on all of them, I think.
I wouldn't recommend Twitter because I believe you're more moving towards Blue Sky for the future.
I prefer Blue Sky. I think it's a little less volatile now.
That's fair. And we'll catch you all in the next one. And for everyone heading to Nats, best of luck, and I hope to see you at once.
Yeah.
Bye.
Peace out.